You're listening to another episode of the Just Go Bike podcast, powered by RAGBRAI. This is the award-winning podcast where we are all about the culture of cycling, just for the fun of it. Your hosts are Murph from the Murphology podcast and AP from Parrot Talk. With tales from all over the nation, come for the bikes, stay for the fun, and leave with a smile. And now here is Murph.
Hey, that's me.
And AP.
Hey, that's me. Well, hi, Murph.
Hey there, AP. How's it going?
Oh, it's so good because I've got to spend this whole week traveling across Iowa with yourself, Matt Phippen, and Ann Lowry talking about RAGBRAI.
Yes, it has been such a fun week, and it's always fun to podcast when we can actually look at each other right in the eyes, figure out what each other is thinking. Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't do that.
I mean, depends. Sometimes.
Yeah. So we have found out that listeners really, really love to hear some of the behind the scenes and inside scoop about the route.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're here, because like AP mentioned, we have been traveling the route. So we are starting on the west side of the state and ending on the east side of the state. And we're specifically visiting all the overnight towns.
Yeah. So while we are driving across the state, we don't know the real RAGBRAI route yet.
Right.
So we are just doing more or less the straightest way from town to town because that's all we got. But It's beautiful up here in northern Iowa. It's very, very flat in general, and it's icy cold and snowy. I'll tell you that.
So we're recording this in mid-February. So obviously RAGBRAI time, this state will look so much different than it does now. But man, the other morning, it was like -17 when we woke up.
Yeah, -17. So it's pretty much the opposite of what the weather will be like on RAGBRAI. So I've got to giggle out of that a couple times.
Yeah.
But so they'll be warming it up for you out here in northern Iowa.
And so we don't know the exact route. At this point, Matt Phippen's still working on all the pass-through towns. So like AP said, we have not been on the actual route. Or maybe we have.
Or maybe we have, yeah.
So in the past, we've done a crop report and a hill report. So I guess, I don't know if we really can't answer either of those, but what would you say if I said, AP, what's the hill report?
I'll say my hill report will be very boring. We'll have one or two per day. So, I mean, they're not out there, but I think maybe I'll have to come up with something else to report on just to make it interesting.
Yeah.
So,
and as far as the crops go, right now, it's just like little nubs from all the, the harvesting. And lots of snow. So we were able to see natural wildlife, some deer and pheasants and turkeys running through cornfields.
I will say there were a couple roads we drove on where I said, this would be really fun to bike. If this was the route, it would be a really fun road to bike on, because what hills there are rolling hills that would be sort of a wee type of bike ride. So it's been really fun as we do these meetings with these overnight towns, because we get to spend time with Matt and Ann. But every once in a while, Matt will break off from our group and go and talk to the pass-through towns and the meeting towns, just to start a friendship with them, a relationship with them, to try to, in the very beginning stages of planning those parts of the route. So it's kind of fun to see sort of the behind the scenes, as he hasn't really shared what those towns are, but sort of how he goes about planning the final details of the route.
Right. So another thing, if we're going to talk about behind the scenes, it's amazing. I mean, when the route will be complete and public, I'm guessing somewhere between maybe 35 and 45 communities. Yeah. So that means 35 to 45 festivals that will all happen. Yeah. And each festival, so each town has a huge group of volunteers that somehow come together, figure out a common goal, and that's kind of where we are at right now.
Yeah.
Meaning where some of these groups that we are coming to speak with are just meeting each other for the first time. Like they're like, I want to be part of RAGBRAI. Yeah. Me too. And then they go to this meeting, and then they have to figure out, all right, what's my area of expertise? What do I have time to work on?
Yeah.
But Ann mentioned at one point this week, there are almost 20 communities of volunteers that all combine to make the RAGBRAI committee for the town.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We have, like, for example, a hospitality committee that would decorate the town. We have the marketing committee that we're talking to this week where they make this, but then the marketing committee is split into little pieces. So we have someone who's designing the website. We have a committee that's doing the social media. We have a committee that's making the signage for like wayfinding as people come into the town. It gets really, really granular because each one of these pieces, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
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 So I know we say this a lot, but we really just couldn't appreciate more the hard work that these volunteers are doing to prepare for RAGBRAI. And we've only seen a fraction of the number of people who are doing it.
Yeah. And like you said, the focus this week, so each time that Matt and Ann come across the state, they focus on either a smaller group or a specific group of those little buy committees.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this week, the focus is more on the marketing side.
Yeah.
So AP and I got to come along. AP focused on social media and websites and logos and themes, things like that. And then her and I together talked about this very podcast.
Yep, that's right. We talked about the Just Go Bike podcast because since these people are maybe not cyclists themselves, they're mostly community leaders. So it's a blend of different types of backgrounds and ages, demographics, all that kind of thing. So some of them have heard of our podcast and some haven't. So we're just sort of filling them in on the ways that they can use our podcast to share their plans for RAGBRAI and show off their frankly amazing communities.
And it was neat to sit in on these meetings because you as RAGBRAI staff, I mean, you have detailed forms and calendars and I remember last episode, I think I called it a Bible or handbook or whatever. So right now we did, all the towns that we've been to, it seems like everyone's a little bit ahead of the game.
Yeah, overall,
Because now is the time when they're actually gathering their community, their volunteers for these committees. But then they have to figure out their logo, their theme. They have to fire up their website, their Facebook page.
Yeah.
And before we pushed record, you were speaking a little bit about that theme and logo and how they go about it.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting to see what they come up with. Each overnight town has their own logo. And in addition to, RAGBRAI has its yearly logo. This year it's the Take Flight theme with the sort of the airplane RAGBRAI 52 sort of motif that we have going on. But each and every one of these towns is going to have their own logo the cool thing about it is it really speaks to, usually these logos of the towns have some element of the community that they'd like to showcase incorporated into the logo. So for example, last year in Glenwood, it said, "Let's get it started," which is highlighting the Luss Hills that is sort of begin it and go northward from Glenwood. So, and it was a big part of their route and it was a big part of their logo. So
are there any logos or themes that have been public yet that we could mention?
We do have one. Cedar Falls has their logo. It's not quite their final logo, but it's on their Facebook page, so I think I could talk about it.
Yeah, and it's cool how it relates back to their community.
Yeah, so their theme is Ride the Wave, and they just have a really beautiful wave park, is I think what they call it, on the river that goes through Cedar Falls. It's sort of like a whitewater rafting and tubing thing, where they have it going on where you can go in and enjoy that. And I'm really hoping we get a preview of that on the route inspection ride.
I think it's called the Gateway River Park.
Thank you.
And that's where they have all of that going on. So that's really cool. And that just goes to show you how much effort and time go into.
Yeah. So as the communities announce their logos and their themes, pay attention to that and sort of you'll see that they're trying to show something off about their community. And it's really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, maybe do a high level of each of the overnight communities.
Sure.
Listeners will try and maybe give you a sneak peek on something, or at least just kind of give you an idea of what it was like in there.
Yeah. So we started off obviously in Orange City, which is our starting point for RAGBRAI, and the RAGBRAI Expo will be there, as well as we'll start bicycling from there.
And they have, it's kind of like a Dutch-inspired community. So one of the things we noticed right away were the wooden windmills that are all over the community.
They're everywhere, as well as big murals. That's one of my favorite things about Orange City is that they have murals just on everywhere downtown. And Dutch theme, bike themed, and tulip theme because, again, Dutch.
Yeah. And then somebody in the community pointed out to us, if you're in the area and want to come early to Orange City, in mid-May, they have what's called their Tulip Festival, which sounds amazing.
Amazing.
And I looked it up. This year will be their 84th year of having
Wow.
it. So they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But in addition to the Tulip Festival, they have what's called Tour de Tulips bike ride.
Ooh.
And that's happening on May 17th. So if you happen to be in the Orange City area in May, look that up.
Be a cool training ride.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, we also stopped by Brad's Bistro because actually, to be honest, I had seen a news clip from Orange City about RAGBRAI, and the interview took place in Brad's Bistro, and I'm like,
So
ooh,
you're like, we got to go.
we gotta go. And it's delightful.
Yeah, it's a huge space, and hopefully they'll have them on RAGBRAI. We'll find out. But they had these chocolate tulip cups.
Ooh.
And remember that? The cups were actually made out of chocolate.
Yeah, it looked amazing. All the food, my mouth is watering just thinking
I
about it. And we don't want to give too much of a sneak peek into our coffee
for
shop
sure,
episode,
for
but
sure.
highly recommend, as well as we had lunch at Giselle Egg, which is our meeting space. And I believe down the road from those two businesses is a sort of a meat market, and the food came from there. It was really good.
yum.
So shout out to
Yeah.
them. Oh my God. You can tell it's lunchtime.
Okay, our next overnight town is Milford, and I believe that is called the Gateway to the Iowa Lakes. So that
Ooh.
should tell you right away that it is a beautiful area.
Yeah, it's if you're not familiar with the Okoboji area in Iowa, get familiar because we're going to be visiting there on RAGBRAI. It's several big lakes that are a really popular tourist destination, and Milford is a community in that area. So a lot of boating, a lot of outdoor summertime recreation going on in Milford. We saw a business that had, I think, like 50 Adirondack chairs just sitting outside for sale.
Oh, maybe more.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously that was a photo op we had to stop in, even though it was negative 15 outside. So
Yeah, look on our social media. You can see Andrea freezing as she's stopping for a photo.
yeah,
op.
I don't know why I wasn't wearing gloves, but it's fine.
And then, do you remember the business across the street had? I don't remember. It was like an industrial business, but it had an eagle sculpture.
A big eagle sculpture.
Huge.
So-
So cool.
Cool artwork there. And they also had a bike shop called Okoboji Cyclists.
Yeah.
And I have never been there, but it looked neat and got to give them a shout out because it's a local bike shop.
Yep. And there is a coffee shop there. So stay tuned for our Coffee Shops of RAGBRAI episode. You'll learn more about that.
Yeah. And I know there is a bike trail in the Milford area, the Dickinson County Trailhead. So
Okay.
there
Yeah.
must start there. So
Okay.
that'll be a fun one to explore later when it's a little warmer.
Yeah. Okay, next stop for us was Estherville.
Yeah.
And there was not one, but two water towers sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
And they both looked very old. So we'll have to find out the scoop on if one of them's functioning or both of them are functioning.
Yeah.
Or maybe neither of them. Maybe they're art sculptures.
Yeah. So you'll see Estherville coming with their
Yeah.
many water towers.
Yeah.
I called Estherville the oasis of RAGBRAI delights.
Okay, and you have to say why you called it that.
Because there's a little nexus in Estherville where they have everything that RAGBRAI riders love, which I would say is a school to camp in, an ice cream shop, 2 gas stations, a Casey's and a Quick Star,
Yep. Subway,
Mexican restaurant,
Chinese, I think, was right in there too.
hardware store, all within
Everything.
like a block and more. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but they are all there downtown in Estherville.
Yeah.
So it was just really awesome. So get your buns over there.
Yeah. And of course, it's February, so you haven't made all your final plans yet for RAGBRAI, but we found out the band that's going to be there, and we cannot disclose it. It's not public yet, but you're going to want to definitely get your buns to Estherville.
Yeah, I would say overall of the towns where we have discovered their entertainment, it's going to be good.
It's going to be good.
It's
Yeah.
going to be a good year for bands this year.
Yep.
Shout out to the Estherville Chamber because they have cool merchandise.
Oh my gosh, they had a whole room.
They had
of
a room.
merchandise.
Yeah.
I think it said something.
The Ville.
The Ville.
Yeah.
The Ville. So that's like their slang for Estherville.
Yeah, and that's not their RAGBRAI theme. That's their regular everyday theme.
Yeah, the Ville. So
yeah,
cool.
check out their cool merch.
Yep.
So we're excited about Estherville. And then from there, we rolled on into Forest City.
Forest City.
Yeah.
And that is pretty far up north.
Yep, you're getting up there, and it was cold, but it won't be on RAGBRAI. Maybe we'll have less heat. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be nice, yeah. And Forest City is home to Waldorf University. And so we were lucky enough to have our meeting on the campus area. It was just beautiful.
It was really beautiful. It's a little hidden gem up there. And having a university in town means that there'll be a lot of good accommodations for riders.
Yep.
And probably entertainment. So we really love Forest City. Also, shout out to their placeholder website that they have put up for us. So go to forestcityragbrai.com just to see. It's only temporary. It's just there to hold the spot while they develop the rest of their website.
And they have a awesome theme that is not public yet. So stay tuned for that one. That's going to be really fun.
Forest City has a beautiful town square. I'm sure that'll be a part of their RAGBRAI plans with a full-size tank.
Oh, that's right.
Non-functioning tank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also we spotted a place called Sally's Home Cooking that has homemade pies. Now the verdict is out whether or not it will be open during RAGBRAI, but if you should be coming to Forest City any other time of the year, I would recommend stopping there.
And if she's closed, you can still guarantee that there will be pies.
There's going to be pie.
Okay, from there, we end up in Iowa Falls.
Yeah, Iowa Falls, I should say immediately right off the bat, it's home to the RAGBRAI official bike shop, the Spoke and Wheel. Mm-hmm. So shout out to Tyler and the team over at Spoke and Wheel. Mm-hmm. So Iowa Falls is a very beautiful town. We were last there in, I think, 2021.
21, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we've been there a little bit kind of recently.
And the committee that we met with talked a little bit about, they have all these new sculptures popping up around town made from ash trees.
Yeah.
And we actually saw a couple before we got to the meeting. They're in like people's front yards.
Yeah.
And we were both like, wow, look at that. And then we found out, we learned about the local artist. And I think it will be fun as we get closer to RAGBRAI to maybe make sure Iowa Falls points out where they are, or we will, because they are really cool.
They're really cool. If you are from Iowa or the Midwest, you might know that there's an affliction that is happening to the ash trees of Iowa. Mm-hmm. It's called the emerald ash borer. It's a little bug that gets into the ash trees and eventually will kill them. So this is a really, really cool way to make use of these unfortunately dead trees that are all over the city, because an ash tree is a beautiful tree that a lot of people planted in their yards. So it's just a nice way to sort of make a lemonade out of lemons.
Right.
So, yeah.
Also on the committee was Carla, and although we didn't go, she was bragging about her meat market. So I'm going to be excited to check that out.
For sure.
Yeah.
I remember going back to Iowa Falls 2021, we took a really cool riverboat ride it's sort of through the heart of the town, and there's a beautiful bridge and everything like that. But we were here this time, it was all ice. So I hope we get to check out the river next time. And I heard word that you can swim in their river, and they have pool noodles and like floaties. So
that's right. Yeah,
so
that's right.
I can't wait for that. So, yep.
Okay, from Iowa Falls, we went to my alma mater, Cedar Falls. You and I go Panthers.
Yeah.
And it was so fun to be back in the city.
It's great to be in Cedar Falls with Murph, because she's a great tour guide. She's like, ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that.
That was there when I was there.
This is a good restaurant. This is a good bar. So it's really fun. It's a treat to visit Cedar Falls in general, but also with Murph.
Yep. And there are a couple coffee shops. Again, we will have an episode about it, so we won't get too deep into it. We got to see a little bit of the UNI campus. We got to hang out with our friend from Bike Tech, Brent Johnson. Thank you, Brett, he gave us a little tour of his bike shop.
Also an official bike shop of RAGBRAI. So can't miss that. It's downtown. It's actually directly next to City Hall. So in an old post office. So if you see some pictures of us on social media trying to hack into the post office boxes, we're trying to guess the combinations of the old boxes. So Bike Tech is a really cool place.
And then, of course, we mentioned that Gateway River Park with the Ride the Wave. That's going to be really cool. I can't wait to see what they end up doing for all of us riders when we get into town.
What I'm bringing from this is I'm going to need to bring my swimming suit.
Oh, all right.
So,
well, I mean, spandex, you could probably get away with jumping in a river, but yeah.
There you go.
Okay, from there, Oelwein, which was driving to Oelwein, and I believe Anne was in the car with us and mentioned that part of where we were driving, she felt confident was going to be on the route. And the cool thing about it was there were the Amish horse and buggies driving on the shoulders. Or driving? What would you call that?
Sure, driving. Yeah, you
horsing,
drive a buggy.
They were horsing
around. Yeah, it's Amish country for sure. So you'll see the barns, and you'll see the clotheslines and the community buildings that you might associate it with the Amish, where they don't make use of electricity.
Yeah, they have very traditional and conservative ways of life, and it was very obvious as we cruised through. Really cool. It gave me a very calming feeling.
Yeah, it's neat to see the old ways, and it's neat to see just people making uses of horses still, and just sort of their wits and hard work.
Right. Yeah. And then we ended up in Oelwein, and actually that's where we're recording right now. So it's not a spoiler alert, but this is where Matt Phippen grew up.
Yeah.
And so it was fun seeing all the committee members, remembering Matt at different points in Matt's life. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is neat. It's just another example of the sense of community of RAGBRAI, and how we really are us. The RAGBRAI staff, we're Iowans, and we love being here, and we love being a part of our communities. And it's fun to hear the stories about Matt when he was little.
And we actually are going to stay in this community tonight. So on a future episode, we'll probably share with you. We got a ton of different ideas on things to see while we're in Oelwein, places to go eat, a few after, bars to check out. So you'll have to wait for a future episode to hear more about Oelwein.
Yeah. So love being here. It's so fun. So you'll hear more later.
And then of course, hitting the Mississippi River, Guttenberg. And we started the week with kind of that Dutch background, Dutch heritage. Well, Guttenberg has a real strong German heritage.
Yeah.
So you'll notice that when you see some of the buildings, the architecture, lots of Civil War type structures, and of course the beautiful bluffs.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Guttenberg is one of our among many beautiful ending towns. It's one of our most beautiful.
Yep.
So I really love coming in there. It's iconic.
Yep.
You're going to get some really good pictures while you're in Guttenberg.
And we found out that the dip site is similar, almost probably the exact place it was last time we were in Guttenberg. So that's really cool. And then one thing to point out that Guttenberg's really working hard on is, it's a smaller community. So they're really working hard to develop a well planned out parking plan.
Yeah.
For especially once we hit the river, we have all the bikes, but we also have all the vehicles because everyone's packing up and going home.
Yeah.
So they're working really hard to figure out a good strategy for people who are coming in to pick up riders, but then also for people who are heading back to their home to be super depressed that they're no longer riding their bikes.
Yeah. Well, and we've had a couple of communities over the last few years who really nailed drop off and pick up. So they have some good examples to draw upon, plus their previous experience.
Mm-hmm. So I would say, my opinion, AP overall, is that, all of these communities are in their very, very beginning stages of planning. And the coolest thing about it is, and maybe, I've been doing RAGBRAI a long time, I just always assumed that the staff at RAGBRAI dictated what everybody did, and not in a negative way, but just here's where your band goes, here's the food you're serving, here's how you do this. But it's exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
The point of these meetings are for the RAGBRAI staff to come in and give these communities confidence, give them the background, give them notes from other communities, and then help them make the plans and the decisions on what's best for their community.
Yeah. Well, every town is different, so they're going to need a different setup and a different way to do things. So, and that's sort of the fun of RAGBRAI is every place you stop has a little bit of a different flavor and a different perspective. So it's super fun to see all their plans starting, and then we'll see them come together over the next couple months.
I love it. All right. Well, I guess that's it for this episode. Of course, we're going to talk to these communities and about these communities many more times before we actually ride our bikes.
Yeah. Thanks to the communities for all their hard work. That's the one thing I'll take away from this week above all else is how much hard work and excitement that they have. So thanks for everything. I can't wait to talk more about the towns of RAGBRAI.
So should we go for a bike ride right now?
No, unless it's indoors.
All right. We'll put on our hats, mittens, gloves, coats, boots, and go back outside.
All right.
See ya.
Well, listeners, that is it for today. We want to thank you for tuning in to listen to the Just Go Bike podcast. If you would like to contact Murph and AP with a comment about the podcast, or maybe even you have a topic in mind, you can reach us at justgobikepodcast@gmail.com. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook and watch our intros on YouTube. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, especially if you're a fan. That is going to do it for this week. Until next time,
Just go bike.
Theme song by Ryan Steer, logo by Suzanne Milosevic, produced by Kathy Murphy, social media by Andrea Parrott, intro by Pumpkin. Until next time, just go bike.